the nation's report card this year. Only 3 in 10 children are reading proficiently. It's absolutely unacceptable, and it is a national security issue.
The Department of Education at the federal level has certainly failed us.
I think there's a lot to celebrate when it comes to enforcing the Title IX provisions as they are intended to protect women and girls in their safe spaces as well as their athletics. Universal school choice is imperative to bring access, quality, and innovation to every single family in America. Good morning, ladies. Wow, I am so excited to be here. So honored that I could speak to you today here on this Sunday morning on Father's Day. I flew up early this morning and I'll be back in time for Father's Day dinner, but I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to be in front of all of you. You are bright, ambitious, ready to lead and live boldly, especially after all of the speakers. I've been listening from home and I'm inspired for you, and even for myself as well. I mean, I wish that when I was your age, I had such incredible role models as you have been able to see here over the past few days. I mean, you have to give it up for every single one of them. Now, I'm Erika Donalds, and although I have had a lot of titles in my life, as you're going to hear when I tell you my story today, my most important titles are wife to Byron and mom to Damon, Darren, and Mason. I've also been a school board member. I've been a CFO. I've been a CEO, an entrepreneur, and an education expert now, advocating for school choice across the country. But I am a woman with a story of struggle, redemption, hard work, and finally finding God's plan for my life through faith and family. Now, many of you are at a crossroads. Whether it's college, career, you probably have very big dreams, but also big doubts. Well, I have been there. I was a very troubled teen, a young woman who felt like I had to do everything myself, and someone who made plenty of mistakes before I found my way. I hope that as I tell you my story today, that my journey could inspire all of you to find your own version of the American dream with courage, faith, and most importantly, a willingness to grow. Now, if you don't know, Titus 2, verses 3 and 4, instructs that older women have to train the younger women. And I know, surprise, I'm the older woman in this scenario. I actually have children that are your age, one that just graduated from college, one that just graduated from high school, and then a 14-year-old. But in Titus it says the older women should train the younger women to love their husbands and their children, to live wisely and pure, to work in their homes, and to do good. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about a little bit today. But first, I want to rewind a little to my teenage years. You see, I grew up in a home that was extremely chaotic. My parents divorced when I was 11, left my single mom struggling to make ends meet, and I felt that instability every day. I was very angry, and I was rebellious. I was just a kid, but I didn't know where I fit into all of this chaos. Money was tight. Emotions were raw. And I was finding a way to show that I had worth when no adults in my life made me feel that way. I had to rely on myself a lot to survive and also to take care of my younger brother. At 14, I got my first job at McDonald's. And I was working to help my mom pay bills, but also to show that I could stand on my own 2 feet. Unfortunately, when I wasn't working, I was using drugs, alcohol, and boys to numb the pain of my circumstances. Even in all that mess, though, I had a spark of determination. You see, when I was in high school, I almost failed out. I skipped class most of my sophomore year, but I was a high school basketball player. And high school basketball saved my life. And that is why we have to protect women's sports, right? The beginning of my junior year, my grades were so bad, I was ineligible to play. And that was enough to make me turn things around academically and eventually graduate with a half-decent GPA. I knew at that time that education was going to be my ticket out of poverty. And so God had a plan. He had a plan for me to go to Florida State University. And despite not getting in at first, I made my way to Tallahassee, walked into the admissions office with a folder with my senior year grades and my test scores. And I convinced the admissions officer to give me a chance. And he did. God is good. Now, getting into college was one thing. I decided to major in accounting, not because it was my passion, but because it was practical, because I was still determined just not to be poor, not to end up like my mom, who struggled and had to depend on other people to survive. Now, in college, I met my husband. And you all know him as Congressman Donalds, but at the time, he was just Byron from Brooklyn. I was 19 and he was 21 when he asked me for my phone number in the middle of the student union. We dated on and off for 3 years during college, and we were just two kids with big dreams and no clear path, especially after 9/11 happened in the middle of our senior year, shaking everything up and making the future so unpredictable. Now, we also, thankfully, found our faith during our college years, but we weren't really walking the walk. We were very caught up in doing things our own way. So when we graduated, I got pregnant, we got married, and thankfully, at that time, we decided to commit ourselves to our faith. We found a great church, started getting involved in youth ministry. Yes, woo! And we loved it. We loved working with teenagers. And for the first 10 years of our marriage, that's a lot of what we were doing. That's where our social life came from. And so I definitely encourage you to find a great church and get involved. But it gave us that foundation that even despite how he grew up, how I grew up, there was a foundation there that would allow us to do something more meaningful with our past. And we really enjoyed that. Now, despite my faith at the time and finding purpose in church, I still carried so much baggage from my past. I had sworn that I would never get married or have children. And yet here I was, married and eventually with 3 incredible boys. But I did not know how to balance it all. I threw myself into my career in financial services, chasing success to prove my worth. Now, I became the youngest partner at my firm, and I shattered the glass ceiling, being the first female to be a managing director. Those are huge achievements, but I'm telling you, they came at a cost. Here's where I stumbled, and I am not proud of it. I was climbing the corporate ladder in finance. I was looking for validation, and I had my master's, my CPA. I was overseeing operations in New York and Florida for my investment firm. If we had Instagram back then, I would have looked like the ultimate girl boss. And I thought that that corporate success would make me whole. And unfortunately, it certainly didn't. I neglected what mattered most: my role as a wife and as a mom. I was working late, traveling constantly, missing family dinners, homework time, and bedtime stories with my kids. I was not the wife that my husband deserved, and I wasn't the mom that my kids needed. And if you can believe it, I also had decided to serve on the school board during the same time. And people used to say, "I don't know how you do it all." And I would think to myself, I'm not doing it all. You think I'm doing it all because you see this outside persona that is an elected official and is a corporate executive, and I look like I have it all together, but inside I knew something very important was missing. So despite all of that, I was burning the candle at both ends. I was exhausted, and it was completely unsustainable. through tearful talks with Byron. And ladies, when you get married, listen to your husband. When he tells you you're doing too much or he gives you advice, I made the mistake because none of the men in my life, when I was young, I couldn't trust them. And so even though I knew my husband loved me and I loved him, I had this wall up of not being able to trust him and his role that God had given him to help lead me and our family. So I had to overcome that. But there were lots of moments of regret, missing memories with my kids. And when I woke up, really woke up, through faith and self-reflection and admitting that I had gone wrong. It wasn't easy because I was used to being the strong one. I was the one who knew what I was doing. I had it all together. At least that's what everyone thought. So to pivot was a big decision for me, but I looked to God, and he assured me, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a path forward. It's not too late. It doesn't matter how far off the path you get. He's there with open arms, ready to welcome you back into his calling for your life. And that made it much easier. I had lost my zeal for my finance career. I knew something had changed, and I needed to go in a different direction. And so during this time, I had discovered a passion for school choice. Now, it started with one of my sons. When my second son was in first grade, I had him in an A school. But they told me that if I didn't put him on medication, that they were going to put him on a bus every day and send him across town to a special classroom. I was like, no, you're not going to do that, actually. I pulled him out of public school, put him into a small classical private school. And at the time, I couldn't afford it because we had spent all this money on this house in the right school neighborhood that we were supposed to be in. But I was like, I'm going to put it on a credit card. I don't care. I'd rather go into debt than have my son be miserable at school every day. So we started taking him to this private school, and he was a different kid. He went from hating school every day to loving school, loving what he was learning, couldn't wait to tell us all about it. He's actually just graduated from high school, never been on medication, never been in a special classroom. He's got a scholarship, he's gonna play college basketball, he's gonna study history and pre-law, and he's doing amazing. And so I questioned at the time, how many other Darrens are out there who need school choice, whose parents can't afford a private education? And so that really drove my passion for school choice at the time. Not to mention the fact that I had clawed my way out of poverty through my education and my husband's as well. And so at the end of my school board term, as I'm going through this process of redirection by God, I made a pretty bold move. I left my high-flying finance career and I started my own company, risking my entire savings to do so. But having my own company gave me the flexibility to be there for my family. And while I pursued a passion, which was education reform, I was able to help start several classical charter schools in Florida, and then I started Optima Academy Online, the world's first virtual reality school. And that wasn't just important for other children who needed that option, but my own youngest son was able to school at home with me while I worked from home, and I could be a part of his education, something that I was never able to do with my older children when I was in my career. Now, this virtual reality school also gives other families options. Instead of being on Zoom, our kids are going to the moon to learn about the lunar landing or to ancient Rome to visit the Colosseum in VR. It's amazing. Listen, I get to hear from parents like me every day who are telling me that this school has changed their lives, that it was the answer to their child who was being bullied at school. It was the answer to a child who wasn't able to pay attention in the classroom, but in VR, they're totally locked in. And so that's another reason why I'm so passionate about making sure that every single family can customize the academic experience for their kids. But as I opened these schools, as I started Optima, I became the proof that you can pivot, you can realign your priorities, and you can build a life of purpose without sacrificing the things that matter most. Now, looking back on my story, I would say it is a testament to the American dream. I mean, I certainly achieved more than I could have imagined based on my original circumstances, but I could have done it better had I listened to God. During the time that I was in my financial services career, I was doing devotions every day. But when I say that, I mean, I was reading a devotion every day, but I was not listening to what God had to say to me. And so, ladies, if you're doing devotions, and there are some incredible women's devotions out there, self-help books, Christian self-help books, please, not some of the new age craziness that's out there. But when you're doing those, read it, yes, read the word, but then get quiet and let God speak to you. Because that devotion time, that time with God that you need every single day, is a conversation. And you have to wait and allow him to speak to you. I think that if I would have done that earlier and really understood what that relationship, that intimacy should be like with our Father, that he would have directed me differently much sooner than allowing me to get off course. But I can tell you, he loves us so much. And he has so much grace and mercy for wherever we are. He helps us gently, with love, back onto the right path, and he did that for me. And today, my marriage is stronger than ever. Byron and I are best friends. We've been married for 22 years. And sure, we have weathered some storms, as any married couple who's been married that long has, but we have been better for it. And my children, who are now obviously much older, graduating from college, graduating from high school, they've seen me grow and learn, and they have been able to learn from my mistakes as well. But most importantly, they know how much I love them. And I would do anything for them. And listen, maybe I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the time that I was away. But thank God, they also have learned to have grace and forgiveness for me and for others. But now I get to not only have a life of impact, doing something that I'm really passionate about, talking about and advocating for school choice at the federal level and around the country, but I get to help other women like you, to avoid the mistakes that I made and find balance while you chase your dreams and God's call on your life. And so here's your call to action. First, anchor yourself in your faith. Life is going to throw you many curveballs, heartbreak, failure, and uncertainty. If you have faith in God and you have that intimate relationship where you can go to him and get direction from him every day, you will not get off his path for you. Work hard, but prioritize what matters. First things first. The American dream is real, but it's not just about titles and money. It is about building a life that reflects your values. And you are able to do that in America as a woman. Don't sacrifice your relationships for achievements like I did. Find your balance early and lean on God to show you how to do that. Be honest with yourself when you make mistakes. Forgive yourself and move forward. Make the changes quickly and ask for forgiveness for others when you need it. Fight for freedom and opportunity. I never knew that my life could have such purpose. When I was in investments, I was helping people retire well, which is important work. But man, when I get up every day now and I fight for families to have freedom and the ability to choose the education for their children, there is no greater satisfaction than helping moms and others to achieve the dream they have for their kids. Ladies, you are the future. I know many of the speakers, including my girl Erika Kirk, the other Erika with a K, the other night, she encouraged you that having children, getting married, focusing on that calling is not a pause. Don't let others tell you that. That is part of the pathway to your American dream. If you are a woman of God, you are called to that. And you are called to lead, whether that's leading your family, leading in your community, or in some future career. You don't need a perfect past to make an extraordinary future. And I believe that every single one of you has an incredible future ahead of you, planned so carefully by God before you were ever born. I'm so honored to be here to follow that Titus 2 calling for the older women in this country to teach you. Now remember, love your husbands and your children first. Find that balance. Live wisely and get that wisdom from God every day. Be pure, work in your homes, and do good. Thank you. God bless you.